Hi there, welcome to our learning video about learning how to learn. So I'm going to share a few insights with you that I learned myself at a class that I took at Coursera.org. That's an online learning website. And this class was put on by two professors from UC San Diego. And their names are Dr. Barbara Oakley and Dr. Terence Sinofsky. And I learned a great deal, and I want to share something with you today about that. And this is especially for you if you're like in middle school or high school. I hope that I can give you some tips that are really helpful. So let's get some basics down first. Before you even think about how to better learn, you have to make sure there are three things in place. One thing is sleep enough. Yes, your mom and dad are right. Sleep is super important for learning because your brain is so busy during the day that there are a lot of chemicals kind of swirling around in your brain, and they need to be washed out, and that happens best during sleep. That's one of the reasons, by the way, that you won't do well on a test normally if you sleep too little, because there's too much still stuff going on in your brain. Okay? The next, one more thing that's important about sleep, whatever you learn the day before will kind of get made firm in your neurons, in your circuitry in the brain during sleep. It actually has an important function for that as well. So that's the first thing. The second thing is exercise. Yes, again, your mom and dad are right. I hope you're encouraging to exercise. If you can't do great exercise every day, at least when you need to read a book or something for school, get up frequently, read something, get up, move around, think about what you just read, return to your book. Stay on the move, okay? Really helps. The last thing is, and that's maybe not easy to tackle, if you are stressed or angry or afraid, it's a lot harder to learn for your brain because your brain is occupied with other things. And that's not, I don't have an easy solution for you. That would be beyond the scope of this video, but just something to think about, all right? Good.
Mom, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm trying to share some tips about how you can learn better.
Okay, well, how is that supposed to work?
Well, I am just going to share some things about that, okay? All right, but weren't you
Okay.
supposed to do some homework, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could do some homework, but I think I'm gonna go text my friends first.
All right, I'm not sure that's the best decision, but we'll get to that later, okay? So first, let me share a couple of modes of thinking that we use in our everyday lives. And one you're probably really familiar with. It's called the focused mode of thinking. And that's when you tackle a problem. It might be a math problem or something, and you're kind of familiar with the steps of solving that math problem, and you're just working away at it, and you're really focused on that, hopefully. That's called the focused mode of thinking. There's another mode that's actually equally important. It's called the diffuse mode of thinking. You might not have heard that one. Diffuse mode of thinking is when you kind of lean back a little and relax maybe and start to think more about the big picture and how stuff connects with other things in your life. And it could be even something like where you just relax. You can take a shower, you daydream even, and that's the diffuse mode of thinking. All right, both modes are really important for learning. Alrighty, so I want to talk about something that's called procrastination. I've written it down here. It's a long word. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. Oh, there she goes again, texting. That's actually a great example of procrastination. What does procrastination mean? You have an idea what that means? She's not really focused right now, but anyway, so procrastination means putting something off that you should do and doing something more pleasant instead. Okay? So the way procrastination often works, you get a cue, okay? The cue for my daughter was doing her homework or looking at her homework list, and that didn't feel good. Okay, so what does she choose to do? She chooses something more fun instead. She's going to text her friends. Okay, and so that's kind of the action you choose to do, and it becomes a routine after a while. You might have that in your life. I certainly have in some areas. And then you get a reward for that. Well, the reward in this case is just feeling better temporarily. And ultimately, that becomes a belief. My daughter might think, I just can't do my homework early in the day. I always have to do it late. I just can't do it. It just doesn't work, right? So it's kind of really important to tackle procrastination because it really doesn't help with learning at all. Okay? And so one really nifty technique to do that is called Pomodoro.
What's a Pomodoro?
A Pomodoro, that's a good question. Pomodoro is actually an Italian word for tomato. And it stands for a timer. Well, and I don't have a tomato timer here, but I have a cute pig timer here, okay? So the Pomodoro works in the following way. If you want to tackle something that you don't really want to tackle, that you would rather put off, set yourself a timer to 25 minutes, okay? And then you're going to put all your distractions away, so I'm so sorry. And then you work on your homework for 25 minutes. That's it. Then you stop, at least for that one Pomodoro. Okay? Can you do that, you think?
I don't know, maybe.
25 minutes is not hard.
Do you think
right?
it'll work?
Well, I think it'll work. You know why? Because we kind of have to overcome this thinking, this is just too painful to tackle my homework right now. And what this does, you stop thinking about that and you just start your work. And the interesting thing is that researchers found out is that when you do that, that pain pretty quickly goes away. You're just doing your work and you don't think about that pain anymore and, you know, or the discomfort that the homework does. So, are you going to go and try that?
I guess so.
Okay, thanks. The other important thing is once that 25 minutes is over, you give yourself 5 minutes of doing something really fun, something relaxing, okay? So that's also important. Think about the focus mode and the diffuse mode, equally important for your brain. All right, so this is a cool technique. Try it. I'll guarantee you it'll work really well. Another reason, and that's the second point or second technique I want to talk about, why this Pomodoro technique is so important. You want to get stuff into your memory when you learn, right? And if you wait and procrastinate, you will have to cram. And cramming is not good for learning at all. It's much better to learn a little at a time. And that's called, this technique I'm going to share with you in a little bit, is called spaced repetition. But before I do that, let me quickly talk about long-term memory and your working memory. So your long-term memory, you can imagine, is like a big storage house, okay? You have lots in your long-term memory. And that's where you want to get the stuff into that you are learning so you can really keep it and have it ready for a test. The working memory is what you have at the forefront of your mind. And researchers found that it's actually really just 4 slots of working memory. You can only hold 4 things in the forefront of your mind at any one time. That's not a lot. So if you're learning something new, it's in there in these 4 slots, and you have to get it into your long-term memory. All right? So coming back to that spaced repetition, which I wrote here, it works in the following way. You learn something. Say you're learning words for Spanish. You put them on little flashcards or whatever the method is you want to use. And you do that in one day. You look at them, you write them down, and you put them away. A few hours later, you look at them again and you learn them, right? Then you sleep over it. The next day, you look at those again, and you'll also already notice that you'll remember them a little bit better. Then maybe a day later, you do the same thing, and maybe then 4 days later. So you get the idea. You're spacing out your repetitions of what you need to learn more and more, and that's a great way to get stuff from your working memory into your big storage long-term memory. All right, that was the second thing. So the Pomodoro technique, spaced repetition. And the last thing I want to share with you, tap into your fantastic spatial visual memory. You might think, I don't have such a good visual memory, but you actually do. Everyone does. Because you can remember how to, you know your town pretty well, and you know how to get from A to B. You know your house really well. So that's what's your spatial and visual memory is about. So remember when I shared this picture. Well, let's actually do something. I forgot that in the beginning of the video, but I'll share it with you now. Remember how I talked about the focused mode and the diffuse mode? So I want to give you a picture for that. And I thought a picture of an eagle actually fits that pretty well. So I'm going to make myself a picture to remember focused and diffuse mode better. So for the focused mode, I'm going to remember an eagle that is diving down to get a mouse. So he spotted a mouse and he's just going straight down for that mouse. That eagle knows exactly what to do. It's done it 1,000 times, well, maybe at least hundreds of times, okay? So that's kind of a picture for the focused mode of thinking. You know what to do, you just tackle the problem that you need to solve. The diffuse mode is more, think of an eagle that is gliding up in the air. It might just be surveying the ground, kind of getting the big picture. It might just be somewhat relaxing. I don't know if eagles sleep while they glide. Who knows? But they might just be fairly relaxed and gaining more strength. That's a picture for the diffuse mode of thinking. So that's another way that's a way you can use your spatial visual memory, attach a picture to what you're learning, and you'll remember it much better. Okay, in summary, let's review what we talked about. We talked about the importance of sleep. We talked about the importance of exercise. We talked about that you kind of have to tackle your moods if they hinder your learning. We talked about 3 things. We talked about procrastination, putting things off, and how to overcome that. And that's where my little pig timer comes in, the Pomodoro technique. All right, and then we talked about spaced repetition, spacing out your learning in little chunks. And the last one that I shared with you was your excellent spatial and visual memory. Take advantage of that. Attach pictures to what you are learning, and you will keep them much better in your mind. Okay, that was it for today. Thanks for listening.